No.
Okay, so we are on Beis Yud Aleph. We'll start from the beginning of this principle, of this thing that we're talking about, 2 lines earlier. The line starts with Kinas Bitl Mamash, which is 6 lines from the top on the page. And we're at the end of the line.
What's page?
Yud Aleph.
Yud Aleph?
Yeah. We are here being introduced and explained another madrege, totally different madrege in Yom Spheres. And also the oil that comes from Shem Ma. Shem Ma comes to be Mevarer Shem Ban. So we spoke about this birur, that there is a ha'or of the Shem Ma that is recognized in Shem Ban. This is what they said before, that the ha'or of Keser is recognized in Chochmah. And we pointed out that is really within Seder Hishtalshelus, even though this is Keser and this is Chochmah. And there isn't a real interrelationship there. It takes only ha'or, and Chesed is shaloi b'yar to Chochmah. Yeah, this goes into the category of being a relationship that is beseder hishtalshelus, because in fact the Chochmah takes only ha'or of Keser, and the Ayin that it is beseder hishtalshelus. And the Rebbe says that beseder hishtalshelus means that this is how it was Mesuder, it was planned to start with, that there should be ha'or of Keser in Chochmah. What is the point of this, as we explained? That even though the Seder Hishtalshelus, every madrege has its own definition. That's what Seder Hishtalshelus means. That every madrege has its own definition. It comes from a high, there's Ilo v'Olu, it comes from an Ilo, but it becomes a Mitzias by its own definition. What is madrege? That's what Seder Hishtalshelus. Chaining down. Even though in a chain, in a linkage of chain, and a chain link, so each link is connected to the upper link, but then it extends on its own and becomes a mitzvah unto its own. That's what Seder Hishtalshelus. And therefore, in the Chochmah is retains the madrege of Chochmah, even though it has a ha'or of Keser. What is the significance? What is the effect of this ha'or of Keser? The significance of this is that Chochmah can guide and give the direction and light. What is the truth? What is the reality? So that the Seder Hishtalshelus all the way down does not sink, so to speak, into the abyss, into Klippa, and it holds on. It still maintains a connection to Kedusha. To the extent that this connection to Kedusha can give it guidance and can have the effect of following through and acting in accordance to the Kedusha. This is where the whole thing of Kabbalah Seil comes from, the whole ability of maintaining a path of Kedusha, even though we are in the physical world. But of course, as we pointed out, that this is a chitzenizik birur. It does not really permeate the mitzias of the gash mitzias of Shamban, the mitzias of the Behema. So that, as we pointed out, as I've explained, that what happens in what happens there, Chochmah perceives a different Keser, and this perception is then transmitted to Bina and transmitted to Midas. as a result of that, there is enormous excitement. Perception of truth from a world, from within the world, is something which has an enormous impact. And that's called the hislavus. So even though there is hisailus and hispoilus, to the extent that one actually submits to this and follows through in his life and so forth, but he remains a yesh, he remains a mitzias. He's seeing something beyond him, and that causes his spoilers. But his mitzias remains a mitzias of yesh. So therefore, even though it's truly a birur of Shembam, but it's not a thorough birur, where the Shembam becomes one unlike the Shema. And now we're going further. Omnam, however, in truth,
no, wait a second. Omnam.
6 lines from the bottom. Before we start, I'm sorry to just want to ask a side question. Sorry to be so materialistic, but I would like to know what's the significance of the word Shem in the expression Shemban and Shemma. We could just say Ban or Ma. Why do we say Shemban and Shemban and Shemma? What's this?
Both Ma and Bab are in the realm of Oyer, not Etzer. The relationship between Oyer and Etzer is a relationship of name, like a name. We discussed this principle of name and the significance of name many times. That name I don't know what. Interruption because the cemetery came in. We explained many times, and it doesn't hurt to mention again that we have a constant view of this principle. The principle of a name, as it is in Chassidus, in Torah, which is pertinent, it's applied only to an entity that deserves and that has that type of a status, that should have a name. And we should not confuse this with name that people have invented, naming cats and dogs and all that. That's not what a name is. A name pertains only to an entity that is true in and of itself. A human being has a name. Why does he have a name? Because his presence in the world is fundamental, is real. Just his presence alone is already a contributor, not his activity. This was not the name, this is the union of oil. Okay.
Now, in this case, Shem Ma makes sense, but why Shem Ban? Since it refers to the name.
Because after the Tzimtzum came Shem Ban. where the Yatzim is concealed. And you have just the Mitzias above. In the human being too, there are these two aspects. There is the fact that a person has a name, and then his activities are also of significance, and that is the one element. What is he really accomplishing practically? All right. Omno. The word Omnom has an interesting meaning, really. Normally translate Omnom, however. However also has an interesting meaning. However could be some kind of a contrary. However, from a contrary perspective. Then however also means a qualifier. And Omnom likewise means a qualifier. Even though we said that this effect of a Shemman, a Shemban, and the Chitzonis comes about with his spoilers, with his lahavos, and therefore is bechinas yesh. But however, this is spoilers, even though it's bechinas yesh at that moment, it leads to something more greater. And it's a precursor to something much truer. This is Omnom. In truth, Achar ha-hislahavus, after the hislahavus, hu ba lemadrego yeser elyeina, he comes to a higher madrego. The important thing to understand over here after the hislahavus, hu ba lemadrego yeser elyeina. In this hislahavus we said that he bechinas yesh adayin. He is still bechinas yesh. And the word adayin is, he didn't read it, but just before that, adayin means still. What is the point? He's still adayin. In other words, the tendency is that should not be a yesh, but he has not really succeeded in stepping out of the yesh element, because in his spoilers, in his lavos, in his spoilers, there could be a different tendency. But he's actually focusing on his personal experience, on the spoilers. Then he's not yesh adayin; he's totally into yesh. Yesh adayin means that he's focusing on the truth, on the eiro eliki, and it's a eiro eliki that has its effect. But he has not yet completely dissociated from the yesh element. But what is his focus? His focus is the ayin. His focus is the eliki. Not the tremendous experience. That's his focus. It's not yesh adayin. It is yesh. He's never going to move out of it. He's not directing in that direction. This is why the expression is Achar Yispoilus hu bo lemadrego yeser elyeinu. He comes to madrego yeser elyeinu. In other words, the meaning that he comes to madrego yeser elyeinu is because that's the direction he's going to. As he's going, he gets to a high madrego. Doesn't happen automatically. If his focus is on his spoilers and his lavos, he will not come to a high madrego. He comes to a high madrega. Who? And what is this high madrega? Who bechinas habitul the Shema. Which is the beetle of Shema. In other words, he reaches into the Shema element itself. At first, he recognizes it, and it has a tremendous effect to a point where he's spoilers of this. But then he focuses in. He says he wants to have the Shema itself. Shebebchinas bitul b'mitzius mamos, where this bitul Shema is in the bechina of bitul mitzius mamos. To explain these words correctly, so to speak, utilizing every grammatical implementation here, shebibchinas bitul mitzias mamash means like this. How does he actually get to this high madrega? That he is focusing in the inyan of Shema, which means he's focusing in the inyan of the Eliki element. The Eliki element has two sides to it: the Elikus and its effect on world. As long as he is recognizing that Elokus has an effect on the world and it causes beetle in the world, so he is still essentially in beetle of Shemban. With the ha'or of Shema. But then he comes to a point, to a madrege. Let me insert something over here. We're not talking about his recognition of that madrege, because at madrege, the minute he saw Shema, he already recognized a completely different reality. But he recognized it from a vantage point of Shemban. There is such a thing. As a result of the hislaivos of these spoilers, he comes to recognize that this inyan, that there is such a thing, is really real right here in his mitzvahs. He doesn't need to stay in mitzvahs in order to recognize Shema. There is the truth of Shema can be recognized right here in this mitzvahs itself. Those who shot beetle the Shema, beetle mitzias mamash. Glisha mislavus.
What was the last thing you said, Rabbi Paltiel, about Hislavus?
No, I'm reading. It comes without any hislavus, because his focus is not on the beetle of Shem, to be mevatel, to show that Shema is superior to Shemban. When you say Shema is superior to Shemban, means that Shema is in a different place than Shemban. And he never is stuck in Shemban. And he can see it only from a distance. But then he comes to realize that that's not true. The reality is that the Shema is present. That's the truth in this world, in the Shemban element. We'll go through the scene and then perhaps we'll use some Rishonim to bring it down. Yes?
I just wanted to see if you could go over that again. The two Shema can mean two things. It can mean either like a beer of Shemban or actually the truth of Shemban. Is that the two ways he's looking at it? Either that Ma is present right in the Ban, or the other way is that Ban is looking to some truth outside of itself.
That's right.
Why?
He recognizes, he sees a higher element. Or, this in when we just born madriga yena yesha, he born madriga yesha yena, which means that the truth of Shema is not at a distance, it's not truth elsewhere. It is true right here.
What's the I'll give you
Okay.
all right.
Okay. I want to give a mushal. I was waiting for later on. I want to give a mushal to understand this. And we have mishalim galore, based on all the things that we've been discussing. In human experience, there are things that are pointing to a human being, and there are things that are saying, oh, this must have been done by a human being. And then there are things that are inseparable. It's not that something is attesting to it. This is entirely human. It's not like you're pointing to something. This is entirely human. This is the way it is. It's not something proof of another. I think that everything that we discuss has that element. I say, you're saying a human being sits by a table. It's convenient. It's neat. It's malchusdik. All kinds of different things. And then there is another inyan that is completely out of place without it. But the Gemara says, "Eichel b'shuk deima lekelim." You know what that means? One who eats in the market, in the public, he's lacking to a dog. Now, but he lost his human face. So this is a completely different meaning. This is not the convenience. It's not a convenience element, not a practical element. That is also only between human purview. But it's a completely different element. It's one thing with the human spirit, and it's inseparable. This is the pshat. You see a physical table. That's how you start. But you realize, no, it's not physical at all. The physicality is completely lost in the significance.
That's true by both of those levels, of where he's using it as malchusdik or it's serving him.
No, there is a practical union. As long as there's a practical union, there is a presence of the physicality. And then there is a direct reflection of the human spirit.
Isn't there always this and that? Isn't there always this and that? Like a person puts food on the table. It's physical, but it also serves him to eat and to feel stronger to work Hashem. So there's this and that. Physical and spiritual at the same time.
It is, but he's not aware of the spiritual. He's aware of the physical. It's an interesting thing that if people want to discuss something, they also sit by a table, even though they don't need a table in all practice.
Conference room.
Huh?
Conference room.
Conference room. Conference room, yeah. You take notes. You just, people should just sit down. Sit down, let's sit down. Where do you sit? They sit by a table. There's no practical usage of it.
You mean that's not so they can have potato chips and nuts?
Maybe. I mean, this is to appease the Yetzer Hara and say, listen, the Behemala, you know, you have it potentially. If you really want it, you can get it.
So, Rabbi Paltiel, you're using a table here even for this direct expression of the human spirit.
Right.
This is like the Panemius table.
Right. This is where the Behemah, the Ban, is lost completely in the Ma element. And in order to sense that, you have to go through the whole process until you relate Taki to the Ma element itself.
First you have to see it as a table, then you have to see it from a functional, and you have to relate from Ma, and then after all
you
of
have
that,
to see it from a functional, you have to see it, you have to come to a point where it is imperative, this is a human element.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if you can tolerate eating in the market, you'll never get to this. If you can stand, I mean, I'm sorry, I go into even our Chassidus on Gesundheit, Simchas, when certain things just stand out in my mind. How people stand and hold the plate and go walk around and eat. It's behind me, you know. I had the welcomes. My wife was coming back, with an ambulance from Montreal, and we stopped in various places. In one place, we stopped to change the ambulances. We stopped in one place. It was a station, and then there was a restaurant, and this was a kosher restaurant, kosher takeout food. And I see him standing there, packing and standing up, right there.
There was no table.
No table, just stay.
So what do you do if you're on the go, you're hungry, you're in a train station, and you need to eat? What do you do?
So I pointed
hide
out.
in the corner.
Sit on the floor.
A person walks over to a corner and doesn't walk around, and they stay in the middle of no place. He doesn't have a place, so he walks in and he's seen it. He's in some kind of self-respecting manner.
So in the old days at weddings, they never had this walking around business with sushi tables?
I don't think so.
This is a decreased sensitivity.
There was always, not always. I mean, as I remember as a child, there was a smorgasbord, which was in the ladies' section. The men were sitting over there by the chosin and having a chazan and maimer, and in the ladies' section there was a smorgasbord. I don't know if anybody going in there and oh, you don't even know what a smorgasbord.
Right, it's okay for one. It's acceptable for one.
Yeah, it's a different story. All right. Okay, this is going on the side. I don't want to speak ill from anybody. I just want to say this. This is like a muscle. And Bittul b'mtzius mamash b'lishum hislavus means that he recognizes the oil itself not through the keli. He's still in the keli. That's the important thing. And therefore there's a coil. But hu'inyan coil the momadako, which is a coil the momadako. It's a soft coil. He's still appreciating. In other words, he's still in a keli, but it's a completely different form of appreciation. The tamon koosi malko. The word tamon koosi malko, and this is where the king himself comes. Not the king's oir, the king's name, but there is the element of the king himself. That's what Tamos and Malko. And where there is a king himself, all definitions vanish. And if definitions vanish, all his spoilers vanishes. This is reality itself. This is the true Bechina of Chochmah, which is called Koyach Ma. What does Koyach Ma mean? Koyach Ma is, again, this is like combining two principles that are very divergent, but yet they come together. On the one hand, it's a Koyach. Koyach means a faculty. A faculty has its own definition of mitzvahs. That's a faculty. A koyach, an ability to act externally, with a koyach. And then it's a koyach ma. The koyach itself is in the form of ma. Ma means nothing, it's undefined, it's unbeaten. And for us, we have a ready muscle for this is an eyesight. An eyesight is a koyach, but it's a koyach that its functionality is accomplished via its beetle, by its transparency, not by processing. The eye does not know what it sees before it presents it to the brain. It just allows the truth to come through. Das mit koyach ma. That's the Ayin von HaChochmah. When it's beetle b'mitzias, koyach ma means beetle b'mitzias. Again, just to make sure that we understand. We spoke about it lately a lot. Beetle b'mitzias not mean there is nothing there. It remains a koyach ma. The meaning of beetle mitzias, the reason I'm talking about it is because lately I've come to deal with people who set them their goal to become bottle beetle hayesh, and then they destroy their whole personality. That's not what it means. Beetle mitzias, just like you can have a yesh, you can experience lakus and remain a yesh. Like we spoke about yesterday while you were here. The beetle, to set as a goal beetle is not beetle at all. Beetle comes as a result of an oyer elyon. Become more sensitive to an oyer elyon. Elyon, a higher oyer. That's beetle. To be mevatel sight is not a mitzvah at all.
Mevatel what?
Sight.
Not look at things.
Not mevatel sight. I don't see. Rahman Islam. That's a terrible thing.
There's mevatel yeshes. That's
Why are mevatel the yeshes?
To be able to relate to this or is that the idea?
Yeah, mevatel yeshes in order that the yesh should allow the entire impact of the oil to come through. So that the oil is the only thing that I relate to, not to the yesh element.
So this would be the bottle, the site itself. This would be like the Porush in the story of Reb Chaim and Reb Mordechai.
Right. Right. It's an amazing thing. That's a phenomenal story.
So there's the difficulty I think that still the yesh has to be able to relate to the oil, to the kiss. Is that the goal? I mean, how is it gonna end up?
Which is what we're saying. Yesh can relate to eloquence because there is the element of chokhmah in the yesh. It's a koyach ma. It could relate to eloquence, not through its own experience or through the reality of eloquence itself. Except it has the way to get there is through the process of bitul hayesh, of his lavos and his poems.
So what remains? It still remains a yesh to be able to relate to Elikus, and then
No. Then he's only. Then he doesn't manage. He doesn't go see him. It doesn't manage. Then he permeates completely. Like I said, in eyesight, the eye is totally besides the point. The eye is not even a messenger. The vision comes directly from the object into the mind, into the person. And you go, and the eye is the keli for it.
See?
In this process, you're saying the step of his lavus is a necessary thing.
Yes. Because otherwise it wouldn't relate to it. Just like in eyesight. The step of seeing a physical object is a necessary step. But eventually you come to realize that this whole sight element it really has a much higher significance. Okay, not going back to everything that we discussed, about oil and all that. Koyach ma, bechinas bitul b'mtzius. Konoida, and it is known shehachochma nikro chayohi. That chochma is called chayohi. What is this referring to? There's the expression in Zohar, ihu v'chayei yichad, ihu v'garmoi yichad. He, which means the oil leki, and chayohi means his life, his chad is one thing. He v'garmoi yichad, he and garmoi is his kelim, the bones, is one thing. And what this is describing is two different levels of beetle, of the keli with the oil. There's a beetle of keli that is a beetle at the level of chayohi, and then a beetle of the level that's called garmoi. Chochma, this is the level of chayohi. Life. Hainu, which means she'ein b'bchinas kelim. The skip shagam. Oh yeah, right. Yeah, shagam klei hachochma nikar chayehi. The klei hachochma itself is also called chayehi. V'hainu, which means she'ein b'bchinas keli b'bchinas mitzius. It's not a keli in a mitzius form, in a b'china of mitzius. And so it's not a messenger; it is a direct absorber. And I would like to time is up. Okay. I'd like to discuss it briefly. We just got there, so I don't want to miss it. It's called chayohi life. Now, life is a phenomenal thing we've been discussing a lot. On the one hand, life is a ruch nizikiyah. It's a neshama element. How does a goof accommodate life? How does Guf treat life? How does Guf relate to life? It's the mamish different worlds is an understatement. When the neshama, Rahman San, leaves the Guf, there's nothing there. And yet, there is life in the Guf. To the extent where it's correct to say, absolutely correct to say that the Guf is alive. And we pointed out many times that the life in the Guf is so real that with the Guf we can sense things that the only reason we sense them is because of the life element. There is not a gashmizik effect, like if you touch something rough, you're saying, oh, the finger feels the roughness. But something has no roughness whatsoever. And yet you sense it. What sensitivity? That's mamish the life element in the finger.
Sight also is like this, or the
What?
sight also is
Sight.
that's even more. Like
Sight is even more. Yeah. So this. I'm talking about to explain the word chayei. How is this affected? How is this possible? And the answer is, it's possible because of chokhmah, because of the chokhmah quality. Chokhmah is what this is. Yamusu v'leim chokhmah. Chokhmah brings life into the guf. This type of sensitivity. There's another element of life that's like makif, and it's a different kind of life. But the actual life.
What's the pasuk you just quoted?
Huh?
What's the pasuk you just quoted? About chokhmah?
Yamusu v'loy b'chokhmah. And there is that. It's not because it's because there is an absence of chokhmah. You see, there is another level of chayas. It's called chayas kloli, which is actually like the makifim, like rotzen and noinek, which is also life, and it's in the guf, but it's not really in the guf, because that chayas is not really a guf experience. It's a neshama experience. The neshama is in the guf for some reason, and it's held up in the guf, and it's a direct neshama. There is no guf. There's no way to explain what that experience is. It's not called a koyach. A koyach, as I said, has a certain presence. Like chokhmah is a koyach, and it's mislabish. It comes in the guf in a certain place in the guf. Chokhmah is not in the hand; it's only in the brain. Whereas rotzen and oineg is everywhere. So there, it's not a koyach. It is neshama itself. But the Eibusha connects and holds the neshama bound to the guf. So that's a different level. But we are talking about the union that there is chayos in the guf. The guf, from its perspective, like we're saying, ban becomes isbarer, it becomes like ma. That means that the guf itself has to experience this. Not that there should be something higher, which is not part of the guf experience of the ban. There's something which is actually an isbarer. But the ban itself, like in Gashmis, the guf itself has a life type sensitivities. The Neshama type sensitivities. How does this happen? This happens due to the services of Chokhmah. Chokhmah is in the brain. First of all, the Gashmis, this is the brain. The brain is an extremely sensitive organ. Much more sensitive to anything else. And it has such sensitivity that it senses nefesh, life. And And Chochmah that's the bridge point where it is a koyach, which means there's a keli. And yet, the keli itself absorbs the entire oil. Very briefly, and maybe I want to point out, we have the mashal of sight. We always point to mashal of sight. It's a very proper mashal. It's mamash b'notos chochmah in gashmis. Because sight gives us a perception of the reality, of the entire reality. But sight, we see through our eyes. We don't see through our whole body. We see through our eyes. Which means it's a koyach, specific koyach. It's not an neshama element. What happened to my call? I'm still there. It's not an neshama element. And the neshama element is like rotzen and is everywhere. This is not everywhere. This is a specific koyach, the eyes. But the eyes are so fine, are so gentle that they absorb the they discount themselves completely. They just tell you what the reality is. Even though you're not really looking at reality because you're looking from one vantage point. But the sense is that you're looking at reality. This is what Chochmah. Chochmah is a koyach ma. It's a koyach, a specific koyach. Like we said before in Chassidus, that he's observing Kesser. He's not even there. He's only observing Kesser. At the deeper level, he's more than observing. He's actually recognizing it, and becomes like a keli for it. But still, it's a keli. And this is where the Inyan HaChayus translates into Gashmis. The real truth of the Inyan of the Chayus in the Guf, even though, like I said, there's Chayus in every part of the Guf, and there's sensitivity in the hand and so forth, but all that is Chochmah dependent. The real sensitivity is in the Chochmah. The reason that the hand is sensitive to something which does no coarseness, no gashmis to it, is because it relates directly to Chochmah.
That applies also to the. That also connected with the oneg.
I said
sensitivity to the oneg, is it also through Chochmah? Sensitivity to the oneg.
You don't mean. They mean oneg from gashmis.
Yeah, but it's triggered. But it's triggered by.
Let's stay on course with that. We'll discuss after I finish.
Okay.
The hand relates to Chachma, or you're saying the only reason why the hand can experience these fine things is because
Chachma is connected. Chachma identifies it. The hand is a physical hand, but because the chayus in the hand comes from the Chachma and it's connected, and the Chachma identifies it. Just like in sight. Like the eye see, but it's not the eye that gives you that experience. It's your chokhmah that gives you that experience. The haraya, very simple. The cat also has eyes. It also sees. It doesn't have that experience.
Doesn't have that experience of reality.
Doesn't have that experience at all.
In some ways, the eagle does have sharper eyesight, but we have reality.
No, sharper eyesight is seeing that which pertains to him. He sees the physicality.
Right.
Doesn't see the ruchnis.
And that's the chokhmah that.
That's the chokhmah.
That's Chayulim, the Chachma.
That's chayoyi. That's why chokhmah is called chayoyi, which means even the keli is chayoyi.
Why? Even the keli is chayoyi.
Even the keli are chokhmah. Chokhmah is bichul in tzitz. Even the keli of chokhmah is
The keli we call now the hands or the eye.
what?
The keli we call now the hand or the eye.
That's Kili Chachma.
No. Kriya chokhmah is in the brain. And the brain itself is also not the Kriya chokhmah. The Kriya chokhmah is mislabish in the brain. Kriya chokhmah is a nefesh keli, but it's mislabish in the brain. And the brain is sensitive to that keli.
Chayoyi translation.
It's life.
What do we mean by this? What do we mean by this life? Chayoyi?
The life means the life experience. There is the truth of the Lakus, and then there is how that truth translates on a functional level. We explained many times that what is in fact the element of life per se. What's special about life? I mean, special about life. That's we're not even going there. But how do we relate? What do we call by life? It's a life. Life refers to something that has an inherent presence. It's not keli dependent. In other words, like we said, you have a cut in your finger, it will heal as if nothing happened. Why will it heal? Because there's life in it, which means that you can cut the finger, but you can't cut the life.
Cut the life also.
What?
A life could also be cut.
A life cannot be cut. You can lose the keli by which the life expresses itself. God forbid.
We're trying to prove because you cut the finger and it's going to heal, but it could be done some damage which will not heal. So
because the keli is damaged to the point where it doesn't heal, where it cannot be healed. You're missing an neighbor. You're missing it. But so you cut the keli in which the nefesh can express itself. But you can't damage the chaya, the life element, because it's a truth. It's a godly truth. You can't damage it.
You call it the hayo. I don't want to because
Chayoyi.
Chayoyi. I know you want to leave here. Chayoyi is the aura.
Right. The effect of it. The effect of this of a lakus. A lakus is called emes. We have no idea what it is. How does it express itself? It expresses itself in various ways. One way is that there is chayas there. And what chayas? Chayas expresses this in that it's real.
And what
You
was
talk sometimes about how the person can lose rotzein, lichios. This isn't the loss of any kind of a keli because the keli is complete.
Right. And the rotzen, as a matter of fact, is not mislabish in a keli to begin with.
Right, so what happens over there? We're saying life isn't cut off. The keli maybe, the neighbor maybe. What happens over here?
If there is a total loss of beetle to the nefesh, then there's a loss of rotz. It's like divorcing yourself from the nefesh.
In other words, it's a loss of sensitivity to the presence of the nefesh.
A loss of desire to have any connection with the nefesh. God forbid. And so essentially, this is what's called depression. There's a negative rot. One of the effects of depression, God forbid, is he doesn't want to be restored. He's resisting light. All right, we want to put it. I just want to complete it. So this is the pshat. This is why Chochmah brings life. Chochmah really is the means to connect to bring life into the guf life. Because this is a koyach that can relate to life, to guf. It's a living koyach. This is why with the koyach ha-chochmah we are able to discern things that are not gashmi, like a truth that only neshama, only ruchnis can discern, and we are able to discern it. Okay, there's much here that we haven't gotten to. All right, so let's call it a day.
I'm quoting in Vanish.
Everybody should remember to go to Yitzhak Bloom's art show.
Also, Vinitsky's having, he wants everyone to know, Chaim today, 4 o'clock, and this is co-ops to apartment 209.
What?
Joseph Vinitsky.
Yeah, no, yeah.
He's having Chaim today. His.
Oh, you mean on Crown Street?
Yeah, on Crown Street.
In the shul?
No. Apartment 209, a guy named Pfeffer.
209.
At 4 o'clock, not at night, it's at 4 o'clock.
That's on the second floor.
1, 2, 3. Brother, keep your head up. I know you're fed up, but the Jews got the move. Let's don't let up. Things get in the way to discern. Ooh, thank you, Tati, for letting me learn, letting me earn, and taking my turn. I know you know one day I'll return. Ooh, the favor's deserved, 'cause of your word, even kinder than mom and you I prefer, over and above the world.